हेलो दोस्तों, गुड आफ्टरनून. This is Dear Maurya, a research scholar at LU, and today I am going to discuss about the next topic. That is, this is the first topic, a cyborg manifesto by Donna Harvey, and the second topic is the historical art text, the historical text as artifact, sorry, as literary artifact. This text written by Hayden White. Okay. This topic also very important regarding our exam, coursework exam, especially for those students who are going to appear in his next exam, in his coursework exam that is going to be in this month held, and the topic is the historical text and literary artifact by Hayden White. In this topic, we summarize all the important major key points related to this topic, and it will definitely help you. It might help you during your exam, and listen it carefully. First, text, the essay start. The historical text as a literary artifact, Hayden White articulates the meta-history is an attempt to hold the readers between understand the epistemological status of literature and history's role in knowledge making. He raises the question of disciplinary boundaries between history and literary, vice versa, fact and fiction. Meta-history attempts to blur the disciplinary gap between historiography and literature. The struggle argues that history employs historical imagination and the narrative strategies of literary writer to depict the past. His idea in that history is narrative prose shaped by the literary conventions and the historical imagination. Harvey returned to Aristotle's question in Poetic about the fundamental difference between history and poetry. Basically, Hayden White talk about Aristotle, Poetic, about the fundamental difference between history and poetry. Aristotle write, listen it very carefully. This line is very important. You can quote in your examination, upcoming examination. That is, the line is poetry tends to express universal while the history particular. Listen it twice. Poetry tends to express universal. Poetry tends to express universal while the history particular. White argues that historical narrative are more closely linked with the literature than any other discipline. History employs metaphor, metonymy, irony, etc. to continue the past event. He says that history replot, redescribe and report the past events so that the contemporary readers can make sense of it. Hayden White argues that the same series of chronological events could be narrated in different manners by stressing different part of series of events and action, which terms employment. Hayden White lists four main types of employment, which are tragedy, satire, comedy, and romance. Listen carefully. Hayden White lists four main types employment, which are tragedy, satire, comedy, and romance. According to Hayden White, we must create a meta history which bridges the gap between the two. He says he said that when we write history, we also rewrite the present. When we write history, that time we present the history. Listen one thing. Whatever you are writing this time, after some days, after many days, it convert into the history. That the things Hayden White mentioned here. I will explain that when we write history, we incorporate the contemporary value which lead us to ask new questions and develop new strategies which lead to creation of new knowledge. A Berlin reminds when we write history, we also create a hope and visions for future. Therefore, rewriting history means developing vision at the end. White argues the we must question that how literature will change as we begin to add alternative history to canon. How has it already changed and how we do want to change? This question rises. The question will help us to develop our own historical consciousness. Listen, the historical text literary the historical text, a literary artifact, is one of Hayden White's most notable work. That literature, some of his key notions on history and narrative. Listen, I am going to discuss the main major key point about this topic. Be ready and open your notebook and ready for the writing that important things. You can write like its key point. You can mention this one like this. The first one is main point. White applies theory to the fiction to historical writing. I am discussing once again the main point. White applies theory of fiction to historical writing. The second one is his essay raises question about the disciplinary boundaries between history and literature, fact and fiction, and he coined the term meta-history. History is stories about the history. The theory attempts to blur the disciplinary distinctions between historiography and literature and fiction. And some more point I am going to tell you. Note the third one is he strongly argues that historians imply the historical imagination which depicting the past in order word. The historical relies on the narrative strategies of literary writer, and the fourth is very important. His idea is that the history is narrative prose shaped by the literary conventions that the historical imagination. The fifth one, the last and not the least, Hayden White returned to the age-old consideration like Aristotle who in the Poetics questioned the fundamental differences between history and poetry. Poetry tends to express the universal, history the particular. Okay, I end up with this line, and I really hope you enjoy this class and it might help you when you enter your exam and the question will appear in front of you in your question paper. You really remind this class कि sir has discussed about this topic, and they told us very few major points that make me write more lines about this topic. And I hope you are all doing your well, and best of luck for your examination. Thank you.